The stars burned bright against the darkness of space as another world turned to ash. Commander Wilson of the Bright Collective Observation Post watched through his station's viewers as the Shadow Empire's death rays tore through yet another inhabited planet. He had seen this same scene play out countless times over his 50 years of service, but it never got easier to watch. The war had raged for over 300 years. Both sides possessed technology that could split planets apart and ships that could cross galaxies in days. The Bright Collective, with their crystalline ships that channeled pure energy, fought for order and progress. The Shadow Empire, with their dark matter drives and gravity weapons, fought for power and control. Neither side could gain the upper hand. Wilson's fingers moved across his control panel, recording another loss for the archives. His gray eyes reflected the burning light of the dying world below. Next to him, his second-in-command, Officer Reed, shook her head slowly. "That makes the 5th colony this month," she said, her voice heavy with fatigue. "The death count must be in the millions." "Billions," Wilson corrected, pulling up the population data. This was a core world. He leaned back in his chair, feeling every one of his many years of service. The observation post, hidden in an asteroid belt, was their only way to track Shadow Empire movements in this sector. But lately, it felt like they were just counting casualties rather than gathering useful intelligence. The war had started over something so simple, a dispute over mining rights in a single star system. But like a spark in a dry forest, it had spread rapidly, engulfing civilization after civilization. The Bright Collective's superior defensive technology matched perfectly against the Shadow Empire's overwhelming offensive capabilities. It was like watching two immortal beings locked in endless combat. A soft beeping sound drew Wilson's attention back to his console. New orders were coming in from High Command. As he read through them, his eyebrows rose slightly. "They're getting desperate," he muttered. "Sir." Reed moved to look over his shoulder. "High Command is initiating Protocol 47, Wilson said, his voice careful and measured. "They're going to start looking for allies among the developing species." Reed's eyes widened. "The lesser races, but our laws forbid interfering with their development. We've spent centuries watching them grow naturally." Wilson nodded grimly. Desperate times call for desperate measures. The Shadow Empire has already begun reaching out to several species. We can't afford to maintain our principles if it means losing the war. He brought up a map of known developing civilizations. Hundreds of dots littered the display, each representing a species that hadn't yet achieved faster-than-light travel. Most were too primitive to be of any use, still fighting with chemical weapons or just discovering nuclear power. But one dot caught his attention. "This one," he said, zooming in on a spiral galaxy arm. "Third planet from a yellow star. They call themselves humans." Reed studied the data scrolling across the screen. "Their technology is centuries behind ours. They haven't even colonized their own solar system yet. What use could they be?" "Look closer," Wilson said, bringing up more detailed scans. "They're adaptable. Their history shows rapid technological advancement. More importantly, they think differently than we do. Sometimes a fresh perspective is worth more than advanced technology." As if to emphasize his point, another alert sounded. More Shadow Empire ships were moving into attack position around a nearby system. The endless dance of death would continue, but maybe, just maybe, these humans could help break the stalemate. Wilson began composing his report to High Command, recommending Earth as a primary contact candidate. As he worked, he couldn't shake the feeling that this decision would change the course of the war. He just hoped it would be for the better. In the viewport behind him, the glow of the destroyed world finally faded to darkness, joining the countless others lost to this seemingly endless conflict. The United Nations Security Council chamber had never been so quiet. Through the large windows, two very different spacecraft hung in the sky over New York, one shimmering like crystal in the morning sun, the other seeming to bend light around its dark hull. General Thompson stood at the podium, his weathered face illuminated by the screens behind him showing both alien vessels. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice echoing in the silent room, "we have ourselves an interesting situation. Both ships arrived within minutes of each other. Both want to talk. And both," he paused, looking around the room, "want us to fight in their war." The room erupted in whispers. Ambassador Jones, a tall woman with graying hair, raised her hand. "What exactly do they want from us? We can barely reach Mars, while they cross galaxies. Surely we have nothing to offer them." Thompson clicked to the next slide, showing images of both alien races. The bright collective representatives looked almost like living crystals, while the shadow empires and voids seemed to shift and change like smoke. "They want soldiers," he said simply. "Both sides have noticed something about humans that interests them, our ability to adapt." On the screens, classified military footage began playing. It showed soldiers training in desert heat, Arctic cold, underwater facilities, and high-altitude camps. What takes their species generations to adapt to? We manage in weeks or months. They think we're primitive, yes, but they want our adaptability. Defense Minister Clark stood up, his face red with anger. "They want cannon fodder, you mean? They'll throw our people into their meat grinder of a war." "Perhaps," Thompson agreed, "but they're also offering us technology. Both sides have promised to share some of their advancements if we ally with them." The room fell silent again as the implications sank in. Faster than light travel, energy weapons, advanced medicine. Everything humanity had dreamed of was suddenly within reach. The price was just blood. In the back of the room, Dr. Harris, head of the Cyber Defense Division, had been quietly typing on her tablet. She raised her hand, her face showing an odd mix of concern and excitement. "Sir, I have a question about their computer systems." Thompson nodded, although he looked puzzled by the seemingly off-topic question. "Our analysis teams have been studying the data packets from their communications," Harris continued. "Their cybersecurity is, well, it's surprisingly basic." Now Thompson looked really confused. "Doctor, with all due respect, I don't think their computer systems are our biggest concern right now." Harris stood up, her eyes bright with realization. "But it is, General. Their entire war machine runs on these systems. Their ships, their weapons, their communications, everything is networked. And they have no concept of cybersecurity as we know it." The room grew quiet again, but this time with a different energy. Everyone present knew Earth's nations had spent decades perfecting electronic warfare. It was cheaper than building massive armies, more precise than nuclear weapons. They had developed viruses that could shut down power grids, algorithms that could crack any code, and programs that could take control of enemy systems. Thompson's eyes widened as he understood. "Are you saying?" "I'm saying," Harris interrupted, "that while they see us as primitive creatures who might make good soldiers, they've completely overlooked our greatest weapon." She smiled, but it wasn't entirely pleasant. "They've been fighting this war for centuries with swords drawn, never noticing that we've perfected the art of stealing the sword right out of their hands." The Security Council chamber buzzed with new energy. They had entered this meeting feeling like beggars being offered scraps by gods. They were leaving it with the beginnings of a plan that might change everything. Outside, the two alien ships continued to hover, their crews confident in their technological superiority, completely unaware that humanity was about to teach them a very important lesson about underestimating primitive species. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility that officially didn't exist, Dr. Harris stood before a wall of screens. Each one showed different alien computer code streaming past. Her team of 30 elite hackers sat at their stations, their faces lit by monitor glow as they worked. "Look at this," she said, pointing to one screen. "Their entire fleet management system runs on a single network protocol. No segmentation, no air gaps, not even basic encryption." She shook her head in disbelief. "It's like they never imagined anyone could break into their systems." Tom Baker, her lead security analyst, wheeled his chair over, His dark eyes scanned the code quickly. "It's not just their fleet systems," he said, tapping his tablet. "Their weapons, life support, navigation. Everything's connected. They built their networks like they were still alone in the universe." The room hummed with the sound of cooling fans and clicking keyboards. On one screen, a 3D model of a Shadow Empire warship rotated slowly. Yellow lines highlighted its network infrastructure, a complex but surprisingly vulnerable web of connections. "They've been fighting the same enemy for so long," Harris mused. "They never developed cyber defenses. The Bright Collective and Shadow Empire, they're both the same. All their innovation went into bigger guns and stronger shields." A young programmer raised her hand. "Ma'am, we've finished the analysis of their communication protocols. You're going to want to see this." She pushed a button, and new data filled the main screen. Harris leaned forward, her eyes widening. "They use quantum communication for faster-than-light messaging, but the data itself—" She started laughing. "The data itself is barely protected. We could rewrite their messages in transit." The implications were staggering. Earth's military forces had spent decades practicing electronic warfare. They had fought countless cyber battles among themselves, developing better attacks and stronger defenses. What had started as simple computer viruses had evolved into AI-driven cyber weapons that could infiltrate any system. "Run the simulation again," Harris ordered. "Full attack scenario." The screens changed, showing a virtual battlefield. Red dots represented Shadow Empire ships. Blue ones showed the Bright Collective's forces. Green markers indicated Earth's cyber warfare satellites, simple, stealthy devices that could be mistaken for space debris. The simulation began. As the alien fleets engaged each other with energy weapons and gravity beams, the green dots quietly spread their invisible influence. Within minutes, red ships began behaving erratically. Their weapons powered down. Navigation systems failed. Life support stayed online. They weren't monsters, but the mighty vessels of the Shadow Empire became nothing more than drifting metal shells. "Time to total fleet disable. 2 hours, 47 minutes, Baker announced. "And that's being conservative. With proper positioning and surprise, we could probably do it in under an hour." Harris nodded slowly. "And the best part, they won't even know what hit them. Their sensors are designed to detect energy weapons and gravitational disturbances. Our attacks will be invisible to them." She walked to her own station and began typing. "Now we just need to perfect the delivery method. The Bright Collective will be our ticket into their networks. We'll hide our cyber weapons inside normal fleet communications." The room grew quiet as everyone focused on their tasks. They had 3 months before Earth had to give its official response to the aliens. 3 months to turn centuries of human cyber warfare experience into a weapon that could end an interstellar conflict. "One more thing," Harris said, looking up from her screen. "Everything we do has to be untraceable. When this is over, both sides need to think it was their own systems that failed. The last thing we want is 2 advanced alien civilizations realizing that the primitive humans can shut down their fleets at will." Outside the mountain facility, snow began to fall on the quiet Colorado landscape. No one driving past would guess that inside, humanity was preparing to show the galaxy why it was dangerous to underestimate Earth's primitive technology. The training room on the space station Freedom was anything but free right now. 20 of Earth's best hackers floated in zero gravity, strapped to their workstations. Each wore a neural interface headset that let them work directly with computers, technology reverse-engineered from Bright Collective designs. "Again," ordered Baker, watching his team from the center of the room. "The Shadow Empire's ships will detect normal radio signals. We need to hide our code inside the quantum noise of their own communications." On the main screen, a simulation showed a massive space battle. Thousands of ships exchanged fire, their energy weapons creating a deadly light show. Hidden in that chaos, the team practiced slipping their cyber attacks past alien defenses. "Better," Baker said, checking the results. "But 8 minutes is still too slow. We need to disable their fleet in under 3 hours, or they'll have time to adapt. He pushed off a wall, floating to check individual screens. Remember, we only get one shot at this. The door slid open, and Dr. Harris entered, pushing herself smoothly through zero gravity. Years of practicing space movement showed in her confident motions. Status report. Getting there, Baker replied. Team 2 has mastered the shield penetration sequence. Team 1 is working on weapons system shutdown. Team 3. He paused, grinning. Team 3 can now restart an alien ship's toilets remotely. Harris raised an eyebrow. Hey, you never know what might come in handy. Baker shrugged. Besides, it proves we can control any system on their ships, no matter how small. A young hacker named Martinez raised his hand. Dr. Harris, we found something interesting in their navigation computers. The Shadow Empire uses automated plotting for their jumps between stars. If we can access that, we could send their entire fleet to the wrong locations. Harris finished, nodding. Good work. Add it to the arsenal. The room hummed with quiet concentration. These men and women had been chosen from every major cyber warfare unit on Earth. Russian encryption specialists worked alongside American codebreakers. Chinese network experts shared stations with European security analysts. This wasn't about nations anymore. It was about humanity's survival. 6 minutes. Someone shouted. The latest simulation had gone even better than expected. Not good enough, Baker said, but he was smiling. Run it again. This time, I want you to. An alarm blared, cutting him off. Red lights flashed as General Thompson's voice came over the speakers. All personnel, battle stations, Shadow Empire fleet detected entering the solar system. This is not a drill. Harris and Baker shared a look. They weren't ready. The plan had been to spend another week training, perfecting their attacks. How many ships? Harris asked, pushing to the main console. 342, the computer replied. Identical configuration to known Shadow Empire scout fleets. Baker laughed suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. Don't you see? He said. It's perfect. A scout fleet. Minimal defenses, standard configurations. They're doing us a favor by sending us a practice target. Harris caught on. If we can disable their scouts, we prove the concept, Baker finished, and we get real combat data to perfect our attacks. Harris looked around the room at her team. These weren't soldiers in the traditional sense. They weren't buff or battle-hardened. They were nerds, geeks, and tech wizards. But in this new kind of war, they were humanity's best weapon. All right, people, she announced. Looks like we're having our final exam early. I want every sensor probe we have around Jupiter's orbit. That's where we'll intercept them. She pushed off toward her own station. Let's show these aliens why they should have paid more attention to their computer security. As the team rushed to prepare, the distant scout fleet approached, completely unaware they were about to become part of humanity's first real-world test of interstellar cyber warfare. The Shadow Empire was about to learn a very expensive lesson about underestimating primitive species. The Great Hall of the Bright Collective's command ship gleamed like the inside of a diamond. Earth's diplomatic team stood before the alien council, their dark suits a stark contrast against the crystalline surroundings. Ambassador Jones took center stage, her voice steady as she delivered humanity's decision. After careful consideration, she announced, Earth has decided to join the Bright Collective in their fight against the Shadow Empire. The crystal beings shimmered with what seemed to be pleasure. Their leader, a towering figure that sparkled with countless colors, stepped forward. We welcome our human allies, it said through the translator. Though your technology is primitive, your warrior spirit will serve us well. Behind Jones, General Thompson and Dr. Harris exchanged subtle glances. The test against the scout fleet had gone perfectly. All 300 ships disabled without firing a shot, but they had made it look like a massive technical failure, letting the ships limp home with tales of mysterious equipment problems. We have prepared a fleet of transport ships, the Crystal Leader continued. They will carry your soldiers to our forward bases for training. Actually, Jones said smoothly, we have a different proposal. Our soldiers work best in small teams. We request permission to place small groups throughout your fleet. Special forces, you might say. The Alien Council whispered among themselves. This wasn't traditional warfare as they knew it, but humans were known for unusual tactics. Finally, they agreed. Meanwhile, in high orbit around Mars, Baker's team was already at work. The transport ships Earth had requested were perfect Trojan horses, each one carrying hidden quantum transmitters that could spread their cyber weapons throughout the Bright Collective's network. Deployment status. Harris's voice crackled over the secure channel. Green across the board, Baker replied, watching his screens. They're installing our communication upgrades on every ship. The backdoors are in place. He paused, checking another display. The Shadow Empire's observers are watching, just as we predicted. They think we're just learning to use alien technology. The Shadow Empire's response to Earth's choice came within hours. Their dark ships appeared at the edge of the solar system, a show of force meant to intimidate. Their commander's message was broadcast on all frequencies, so the primitives choose light over shadow. The voice growled through translators. It matters not. Your simple weapons and basic ships will make no difference in this war. Earth's response was carefully crafted. They launched old-style rockets at the shadow ships, which easily dodged them. They fired traditional missiles, which were swatted aside by energy shields. The show made Earth look exactly as primitive as the aliens believed. The Shadow Empire ships departed, their commanders laughing at the pathetic display. They never noticed the tiny probes that had attached to their hulls during the chaos, more carriers for Earth's true weapons. In the underground command center, Harris watched the pieces fall into place. All teams report ready, she announced to the assembled leaders. We have access to both sides' networks, every ship, every base, every weapons platform. We can control it all. And they don't suspect a thing? General Thompson asked. No, Harris smiled. The Bright Collective thinks we're eager students of their technology. The Shadow Empire thinks we're harmless primitives. Neither side has any idea what's really coming. The general nodded grimly. How long until the next major battle? Intelligence suggests 3 days, Harris replied. The Shadow Empire is gathering their forces for a massive strike. They want to punish the Bright Collective for allying with us. Perfect. Thompson turned to the strategic display, where thousands of ship markers showed both fleets preparing for battle. Then in 3 days, we show them exactly how dangerous a primitive species can be. As the meeting ended, Harris looked at the battle projections one last time. Soon, very soon, centuries of interstellar war would end not with energy beams or gravity weapons, but with lines of code written by the species everyone had underestimated. The battle started like any other in the Long War. 10,000 Shadow Empire ships faced off against 8,000 Bright Collective vessels near a dying star. Energy weapons charged, gravity drives hummed, and massive shields flickered to life. In the Bright Collective flagship's war room, Ambassador Jones watched alongside the Crystal commanders. On the tactical display, the Shadow Empire's fleet moved into attack formation. Their dark ships blocked out the starlight, creating an artificial eclipse. They mean to end this today, the Bright Collective's fleet commander said, its crystalline form pulsing with concern. That is their entire primary fleet. Jones touched the communicator in her ear. Dr. Harris, are we ready? All teams report green. Harris's voice came back. She was stationed in a small human shuttle, hidden among the Bright Collective's support ships. Every Shadow Empire vessel is in range of our transmitters, just waiting for your signal. Jones looked at the fleet display one last time. The Shadow Empire ships were now fully committed to their attack run. There would be no escape. Very well, she said quietly. Execute Operation Power Down. In that moment, everything changed. The first sign that something was wrong came from the Shadow Empire's front line. Their massive dreadnoughts, each capable of destroying a planet, suddenly stopped in mid-flight. Their weapons, seconds away from firing, went dark. Enemy vessels are experiencing technical difficulties, a crystal operator reported, confusion evident in its voice. Multiple systems failing across their fleet. The Shadow Empire commanders frantically tried to regain control, but in every ship, on every computer, their commands were being overwritten. Navigation systems activated at random, sending ships veering into each other. Weapon systems powered down. Shield generators deactivated. Baker's voice crackled over the secure channel. Phase 1 complete. All Shadow Empire weapon systems are offline. Moving to Phase 2. Throughout the enemy fleet, chaos spread like a virus, which was exactly what it was, a computer virus more advanced than anything the aliens had ever imagined possible. Their own communication systems betrayed them, spreading the infection from ship to ship. What sorcery is this? The Shadow Empire's Grand Admiral demanded over the open channels. What weapon strikes without striking? In the human shuttle, Harris watched her screens with satisfaction. Phase 2 complete, she reported. Their entire command and control network is ours. Initiating final sequence. The Shadow Empire fleet, once a terrifying display of power, now drifted helplessly in space. Emergency systems kept life support running. The humans had made sure of that. But everything else, from engines to coffee makers, was under Earth's control. Send the message, Jones ordered. On every Shadow Empire ship, on every screen and holographic display, the same text appeared. Your weapons are disabled. Your ships are no longer yours to command. This war is over. You have 1 hour to signal your surrender, or we will send your entire fleet into the nearest sun. Choose wisely. The Crystal commanders stared at Jones in shock. How? One finally asked. How did your primitive species accomplish this? Jones smiled. We're not so primitive. We just excel at different things. You focused on making bigger weapons. We focused on taking control of them. 52 minutes later, the Shadow Empire surrendered. Their mighty fleet, which had terrorized galaxies for centuries, had been defeated without a single shot being fired. Harris looked at the final report on her screen. Total time from operation start to enemy surrender, 2 hours and 17 minutes. Not bad for a primitive species. Send word to Earth, Jones ordered. Tell them Operation Power Down was a success. The longest war in galactic history is over. As the message was sent, the dying star illuminated the scene one last time. Thousands of dead ships, defeated not by force, but by the one weapon their advanced civilization had never thought to defend against: human ingenuity. 1 month after the surrender, Earth's main conference room was packed with both human and alien representatives. Through the windows, ships from a dozen different species could be seen orbiting the planet. News of humanity's victory had spread quickly through the galaxy, and suddenly everyone wanted to talk to the humans. General Thompson stood at the podium, looking out at the strange mix of beings before him. Crystal formations from the bright collective sparkled next to the now subdued shadow forms of their former enemies. Representatives from other alien races filled the remaining seats, all eager to understand how humanity had achieved the impossible. The terms of peace are simple, Thompson announced. The Shadow Empire will dismantle its weapons of mass destruction. The Bright Collective will share its medical technology with all species. And Earth, he paused, looking at Dr. Harris, who sat in the front row. Earth will establish a new Galactic Cybersecurity Council. The aliens stirred uneasily. They had learned the hard way just how powerful humanity's digital weapons could be. Don't worry, Harris added, standing up. We're not here to control you. We're here to protect you. The next species that develops cyber warfare might not be as merciful as we were. In orbit, Baker supervised the installation of new security systems on alien ships. The Shadow Empire's surrender had come with an unexpected bonus. They had begun sharing their gravity drive technology. Earth ships could now cross the galaxy as easily as any alien vessel. Remarkable, a crystal engineer said, watching Baker's team work. Your species mastered the digital realm while we focused on the physical. How did we miss its importance for so long? Baker shrugged. Sometimes the best innovations come from having to work with limited resources. We couldn't build giant space fleets, so we learned to fight smarter, not harder. Back on Earth, Ambassador Jones met with the United Nations Security Council. The room was much fuller than during their first secret meeting about the aliens. Now, screens showed representatives from every nation on Earth. The galaxy has changed, Jones said. We're no longer seen as primitives. In fact, most species are a bit afraid of us now. She smiled. Which is why we need to show them that humanity can be trusted with its power. The new Earth Defense Fleet headquarters, built into the side of Mount Fuji, buzzed with activity. Human technicians worked alongside alien engineers, combining their different approaches to technology. The results were impressive. Ships with both advanced physical weapons and cutting-edge cyber defenses. In her old underground lab, Harris looked at the message on her screen one last time before sending it. It was a simple warning, being broadcast to every spacefaring civilization. Earth extends its hand in friendship to all peaceful species, but let it be known, we will not tolerate another war like the one we just ended. Any race that chooses the path of conquest will find their mighty fleets reduced to floating metal, their weapons turned to scrap, their technology made useless. We are humanity. We come in peace, but we are prepared for war. The message went out in all known alien languages. Within hours, 7 different species requested to join the Galactic Cyber Security Council. As the sun set over the Rocky Mountains, Harris walked out of her lab for the last time. The facility would become a museum, a reminder of how humanity had ended a centuries-long war in just hours. She looked up at the stars, now filled with possibilities instead of threats. Not bad for a bunch of primitives, she muttered to herself. Above her, ships of all shapes and sizes streaked across the sky. Crystal ships of the Bright Collective, reformed vessels of the Shadow Empire, and the New Earth Defense Fleet. All of them now protected by human cybersecurity. All of them a testament to what happens when advanced aliens make the mistake of underestimating Earth's primitive technology. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the most powerful weapons aren't the biggest or the brightest. Sometimes they're just the smartest.